Hello guys, welcome back. I'm Yusufshakeel and you are watching ChartJS tutorial series. In this video, we are going to create Doughnut chart using PHP and data from MySQL table. So let's get started. Alright, open the project folder ChartJS2 and create a new file and save it as doughnut-db-php.html. And inside the JS folder, create a new file and save it as doughnut-db-php.js. Now inside the HTML file, write the following HTML code. So we have the doc type HTML, opening and closing HTML tag. We have the head tag. The title is set to ChartJS Doughnut. And inside the head, we are including the default.css file, which is inside the CSS folder. That is this one. And inside the body, we have included the jQuery.min.js file and then chart.min.js file, which are inside the JS folder. And after that, we have included doughnut-db-php.js file, which is also inside the JS folder. In this tutorial, we are going to create Doughnut charts for two teams, Team A and Team B, and their score for 5 matches, match 1, match 2 till match 5. So you can see in this table, we have 10 entries, 5 for Team A and 5 for Team B. So inside the HTML file, we are going to create two Doughnut charts using two canvas elements. So let us go ahead and create a div and give it a class chart container. Now inside this div, we'll create another div and we'll give this a class Doughnut chart container. Now inside this div, we'll create the canvas element. And in the opening tag, we'll give the ID Doughnut-chart canvas-1. So this canvas is going to hold the Doughnut chart for team A. And since we have two teams, so let us go ahead and copy this first Doughnut chart container and paste it. And we'll set the ID for this second canvas to Doughnut chart canvas 2. Now before we start writing any JavaScript, let us explore data.php file, which is inside the API folder. We saw this file in our previous video. So let us do a recap. So this is the PHP file that is going to fetch data from the MySQL table, which is inside the MyDB database. So when we call this file, we'll get the score of two teams in JSON format. So if we look at this file, we can see we have set the header content type to application JSON. Then we have created some constants for the database. So we have the DB host set to 127.0.0.1, which is localhost. Then we have DB username and it is set to root. On my Mac, I have installed MySQL and my username is set to root. If your system is having a different username, then use that one instead of this one. Then the next constant is DB password. And on my system, it is set to root123. Use the password that you have set for your system. And then since I'm using MyDB database, so the DB name is set to MyDB. Then we have the MySQL connection, and then we are checking whether the connection was successful or failed. And if the connection was successful, we have this line, which is an SQL query. So if you look at the MyScore table, you'll see we have the team column, match name column, and score column. So we are selecting those three columns by writing select team, team name, and score. And from match score, and then we are ordering by match name. So the SQL query is select team, team name, score from match score, order by match name. Then we are executing the query, we are getting the data, and we are saving the data into this data array. Then we are closing the connections, and finally at this line we are printing the data in JSON format. So if we open the browser and we open this data.php file, we'll get the following output. Let me zoom in. So you can see we are getting a response which is an array, and the element of this array are objects. So the first object, that is the first element of this array, contains some key value pairs. So the first property team is set to team A, match name is set to match 1, and score is set to 10. The second element of the array is also an object, and its key value pair is team set to team B, match name set to match 1, score set to 20. Similarly, we have other objects, that is other elements for this array. Now open Doughnut-db-php.js file, which we created inside the JS folder. And this is where we are going to write our JavaScript code that will create the Doughnut chart. So let us go ahead and write $document.ready function. And inside this, we have this ajax method, and it takes an object, and the first property is URL. So the value of this URL will be the file that we are going to call that will give us the data. In this case, we are going to call the data.php file. So I'll copy the URL and paste it. So we have set the URL to http://localhost/chartjs2/api/data.php. Next, we set the type property to get. There are other methods also like get, post, put, delete, but in this case we are using the get method, so we have set the type to get. Next, we have the success property, and it's a function. And then we have the error property, which is also a function. So if a success occurs, the code inside this function will be executed, and if we have any error, the code inside this function will be executed. So let's say if we have any error, then we will console log the data, and if we have any success, we will console log the data. And now if you open this file, doughnut-db-php.html file in the browser, we'll get something in the browser console. So let us open the browser, and in the new tab, let us open the HTML file. And if we open the console, we can see we have a response, which is an array having 10 elements. And each element is an object. And if you look at the first object, we can see match name, match 1, score, 10, team, team A. Similarly, the second object or the second element of this array is having some key value pairs. So the match name is match 1, score 20, team, team B. And this value, that is this array, is coming from this data.php file. Now we'll create a variable var score, which is an object, and it has two properties: team A, which is an array, and team B, which is also an array. Now these two arrays are going to hold the score of team A and team B respectively for the 5 matches. Now we'll create another variable var length, and this is going to hold the size of the array that we receive when we call this data.php file. So we'll write data.length. Now we'll create a for loop. Var I equal to 0 and I smaller than len I plus plus. Now if the ith element of this array, which is inside this data variable, has a property team, and if the value of that team property is team A, then we'll set the score dot team A property to the score value of that ith element of the data array. So if the team property of the ith element of the data array has a value team A, then we are going to use the value of the score property of the ith element of the data array, and we are going to push that inside this team A array of this score object. Similarly, else if the ith element team property, if its value is team B, then score dot team B dot push data I dot score. So if the team property has the value team B for the ith element of the data array, then we are going to use the value of the score property of the ith element of the data array, and we are going to push that value in team B array of this score object. And now we'll create two variables for the two canvas elements that we created in the HTML file. Canvas having ID Doughnut Chart Canvas 1 and canvas having ID Doughnut Chart Canvas 2. So we'll write var ctx1 and we'll set this value to Doughnut Chart Canvas 1, and we'll copy this and paste it, and we'll create another variable var ctx2, and this is for Doughnut Chart Canvas 2. And now we'll create another variable data1. This is for the first Doughnut chart, and we'll set the first property of this object labels, which is an array having some string values. In this case, we have 5 matches. So this labels array will have 5 elements. Each are strings. So match 1, match 2, match 3, match 4, and match 5. The next property is datasets, which is also an array, and it contains an object. The first property of this object is label, and we'll set this to team A score. The next property is data, which takes an array, and in this case we'll set the value to score.team A. The next property is background color, and we are using some random hexadecimal value inside an array. So the property background color takes an array, and each element is a string of hexadecimal value. The next element is border color, which is also an array, and it takes 5 elements which are strings, and they are also hexadecimal values. And finally we have the last property, border width, which is also an array, and its value is set to 1. Now this variable var data1 is for Doughnut Chart 1. So we'll go ahead and create another variable for Doughnut Chart 2. So let me go ahead and copy this and paste it, and we'll set this to data2, and we'll set the label to team B score, and this data property will have value score.teamB, and we'll change the background color and border color for this second Doughnut chart to the following. It's a random hexadecimal values. Now save. And now we'll create the Doughnut charts. So for the first chart, we'll create a variable var chart1, and we'll instantiate the class chart. It takes 2 parameters. The first is ctx1, that is the canvas. The second is an object, and we'll set the type to Doughnut, and we'll set data to data1. And now if we open the browser and reload this page, we get our first Doughnut chart. Now let us go ahead and create the second Doughnut chart. So we'll create another variable var chart2, and we'll instantiate the chart class. It takes 2 parameters or 2 arguments. First one is for the canvas, second is an object, and we'll set the type to Doughnut and the data property to data2. Save, and we go back to the browser, and if we reload, we get 2 Doughnut chart. Now let's say we want some titles and legends. So we'll create another variable var options, which is an object, and we set the title property, which is also an object. We set the display property to true. We set the position property to top. We set the text to Doughnut chart. Let's set the font size to 18 and font color to, let's say, #111. And now inside this object, we are going to set the options to this options variable. Similarly for the second donut chart, we'll set the options property to options. Now save this file, and if you go back to this HTML file and reload, we have our title. Now let's say we want this legend at the bottom, so back to our JS code, we'll create the legend property, which is also an object. We'll set display to true, and we'll set the position property to bottom. Save this file, and we go back to HTML, and when we reload, we have a donut chart. The legend is at the bottom. So this one is for team A and this one is for team B. I have used a single options. You can create two options if you want. So let's say we have two options. So let me go ahead and copy paste this. And let me set this to options 1. This is for donut chart 1. And let me set this to options 2. This is for donut chart 2. So we'll set the text donut chart, let's say dash team A score, and let's say this one is for team B score, and we'll set this options property for the first chart to options 1, and we'll set the options property for the second chart to options 2. So now save, and if we go back to the HTML file and we reload, we get the donut chart for team A score and donut chart for team B score. Let me reset the zoom. So we have two donut charts, team A score and team B score. Alright guys, this brings us to the end of this tutorial. I hope you will find this video interesting. I'll put the tutorial notes on my website duyclassroom.com. The link will be in the description, and the code that we have written in this tutorial, I'll put it in my GitHub repository. The link is in the description, so please check that out. And if you really enjoyed it, then please give this video a like and please subscribe my channel. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and like always, stay happy and keep smiling. Bye.